Everybody sit down for a couple of minutes here, and we'll go through this presentation. It's the highlight of the show.
Is that really?
So, I want everybody to be conscious. Okay, so we're back again. Appreciate everybody being here, for sure. This is a very interesting segment of the program. It became a phenomenon to me while I got to know these two gentlemen. Historically, a ginseng dealer sat at his phone, got zillions of calls from the harvester's significant other on what the price was, and hoped that your price was better than the next guy's price and that they would eventually come over to your house and sell you your ginseng. It was that way when I started in '94, and up until a couple of years ago, that's the way it was. These gentlemen showed me that there was a new market, a fresh American market specifically geared to American Koreans. Very niche-y, to say the least. But I could totally understand how they were doing what they were doing, but I would also have a problem of myself doing that. I understood that with this market change, we had really a turning point for ginseng in America. Because of technical difficulties, we are rebroadcasting this section out from the conference. John Kim, who is on my left, and Caleb Trivet, who is on my right. John Kim comes from LA, and Caleb lives over in Tennessee. And the situation that these guys find themselves in is that they know the harvester through a telephone call, and they have him on their cell phone. Then he gets a call from the harvester who's just coming out of the woods. And he goes ahead and sets an appointment to immediately go out and look at the ginseng. He is meeting the harvester when they come out of the forest. Pretty close in time. The dealer gets this address from the GPS, new technology. The dealer meets the harvester at usually a very rural location, and has to bring his scales to weigh the ginseng and to make the deal. Ideally, the ginseng has been taken fresh, just minutes to hours from the dig. Then the dealer puts the ginseng into the coolers and immediately notifies his list of buyers that he has some ginseng, fresh ginseng, immediately for purchase. Hopefully, this transaction will happen within 24 hours. And the ginseng will be just a couple of days out of the ground. but it's been in coolers, and it should be in good shape. Now, one of the things that they do in the new system is they don't wash the ginseng. The more the ginseng is washed, the faster the ginseng will dry. So, and their buyers are very sophisticated and want to see the dirt on there to know that it's fresh, and also will do not mind paying for the extra dirt, which they go home and they clean. So we have a new system where the dealer knows his harvester and he knows his buyer as he's making the transaction. And he has to be in contact with both of these ends, both the harvester and the buyer, with his communication of phone. This makes a brand new system of fresh, green American ginseng, which right now has a Korean American market.
What happens to the dealer in your direct market model, John?
Oh, one more time.
What happens to the dealer in your direct market? And if you're going right to the digger,
He is a dealer.
I am a dealer.
These guys are dealers.
Yeah.
So the question was, what happens to the dealer when you go from, the harvester straight to a person? But these are licensed North Carolina ginseng dealers.
so how are you treated by, you say you reached out to dealers.
Yeah.
You're moving in on their territory,
Yeah,
right? I'm
big
curious.
time. Aggressively.
Yeah.
I didn't have any guns, and that was crazy too. That's. So, in the beginning, I actually aggressively, penetrated the market, I think. And I met a lot of diggers. I was in the woods about 4 to 5 days a week, and there were times I wanted to actually go deep into the mountain with these guys. So I actually packed trash bags. So we actually put on the trash bags, a couple of them, and then went to just sleep on the ground, And I actually got together some other diggers too, and did that numerous times. And I did bought some ginseng from them, but it did actually cause a lot of problem. And then I was not mindful enough to talk, think about the local dealers. And I actually was approached by some of the local dealers, and we had a conversation, and that makes sense to me. So I decided to start buying from the local dealers now, and we have a good relationship. We actually still keep in touch, I just want to sometimes call, but they want to do FaceTime, So yeah, I feel like I need to actually buy from dealers, local dealers, and it doesn't really affect me much.
You mean dealers or diggers?
Dealers. Yeah, but I still keep in touch with a lot of diggers as well.
So,
But I buy from dealers now.
generally, what's the retail price of a pound of fresh in Chinatown in Los Angeles?
Well, that kind of varies. They'll actually, sorted by sizes or maybe an age and whatnot. But I'll say they make enough markup. That's all I can say, because some of them I've seen actually goes over like a couple $1,000s per couple ounce, like 2-3 ounce.
I run a root contest, $500 to the biggest root, $250 to second place, $100 for third.
Yeah.
Should build relationships with.
Well, the larger roots are more valuable if they have the right characteristics.
Yeah, but if I buy that from him with a little bit of markup, I could probably sell it to the Chinese market for a lot higher. Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, there is a market.
Yes.
For one more.
Yes.
Are either of you seeing demand for ginseng leaf?
The question is, are we seeing demand for ginseng leaf?
Oh yeah, you want to go?
I've had no requests, but I do have a few avenues to sell ginseng.
Yeah, I do have demand for leaves. I think it's a great potential market. I think it's the niche market that we could actually approach, but because end user doesn't know, they're not educated about the leaves, so I think the hurdle that we have to climb over is to educate the health, property that the leaves has. But then another thing that I'm actually facing is that because leaves are so light, you can harvest a lot, but then when you dry them, it's so light. And I was thinking about making it into a tea bag, and usually it requires about 1.5 grams per tea bag, and harvesting like a pound of wild ginseng leaves and drying them out, and to me it was there was a little bit of a challenge from a business perspective.
Yes.
So Caleb, you reflected on the fact that when you were digging, when you were 10 with your granddad and seeing these 400 individual patches, and now they're 25 individual, more difficult to find, and then John at the same time is incentivizing. Now he's for the digger, he's offering a higher price, and you as well for the green. So how do you mesh that with the fact that if you incentivize more people, ginseng's already the highest priced native medicinal plant. Now you're talking about increasing the value even more. So how's that mesh with conservation? Like you're encouraging more digging with higher prices.
Well, I'm
Okay,
building.
hold on a second. The question was if the prices are going up enough, how are we going to be in a conservation mode?
I'm building a personal relationship with a harvester so that I'm comfortable knowing that they're harvesting ginseng legally, that they're knowledgeable about how to replant the plant, that they have experience. They're not bringing me pounds of damaged root, which is not worth much to me. If it's a new customer, I'll give it back to them completely. I won't even buy a root, just give them everything back to punish them for their ignorance. So as far as driving the market up, it's just a reward for being a steward for the plant and getting the product that is easier for me to sell.
Yes.
So just to be clear, we're talking about true wild roots here. You're not dealing in any wild simulated roots.
That's probably, okay, the question is, are we dealing with wild simulated roots to the fresh Korean market?
Yeah, we are. So, but in the market, the end user doesn't know the difference between a wild simulated versus wild. So I think most of the people will just take it, assume it is wild, and then they consume it. Yeah. But I'd like to actually answer John's question.
Sure.
I think I'm really glad that actually John brought it up. The question that John actually brought up should be like the ultimate question that we all should actually concerned about, and that's why I'm actually here. And I see that there's maybe two different approaches. I think the way that Robert approaches to try to tackle this problem is through regulations and rules. But honestly, from my perspective, when I was out in the woods, I was able to get to know them personally. I understand their family situation, their personal challenges in their life. Some of them have like drug issues, some of them has financial issues. So they're always short on financially, very, very tight. So therefore, if there's a ginseng with maybe 1 prong or 2 prong, and they don't know how to go and pay the bills, and they have like 2 years old and 3 years old crawling around, most likely they're going to go and dig it. You know what I mean? So, and so to me, it was really difficult for me to actually convey the message saying that it is not a right to dig, it is actually a privilege, and that didn't really work out honestly in a life situation with a lot of people. So I thought maybe there's another direction to approach to actually tackle this ultimate question, maybe from a market perspective. If there's some way that we could actually help the digger get maybe a higher margin and help the dealers get a higher margin, then I think there is a way to actually do this. But by myself, it's really hard, and that's why I'm here to get feedback.
I don't feel that rewarding them with a root contest or a higher price for the green is increasing the harvest because it's just for the green, and it's just for mature roots that have been dug properly, expertly. And if there are any young roots in it, they get everything back. The first time customer, the guys, they come in with us and say, man, that's 4 years old, get that out of here. you need to set those back out, and it may be that big around. I may want to sell it, but this is the law. Take it and put it back. The dry, they're out digging it before it's even reseeded, and it's junk. Can barely give it away. People want to pay $300, $400 a pound for ginseng that's got 10% of good-looking roots dry, and the rest of it chopped up, small, underage junk. It's unmarketable. So I don't really see the price being driven up, because I'm not going to give them anything when they roll in with the dry ginseng that has been butchered and is young.
Yeah, but aren't there dealers who do? There's got to be some kind of market for it.
Well,
The question is there some type of market for it?
I mean, they wouldn't be digging it if somebody wasn't going to pay them something.
sure, but it's not as valuable as something that I don't know the science behind the ginsenicides. Maybe somebody in the audience can help me, but it's my belief that the age of the plant is more potent.
Right.
So that's how the problem's solved. They'll pay less for the young roots.
Well, and I hear you, but the reality is, we're losing habitat, especially Western North Carolina. Oh my God, this is the epicenter for habitat loss. And, recent research by Jim McGraw in West Virginia, says the plant needs to be 12 years old for 100 plants to reproduce 100, themselves to make 100 plants. So, those two things combined, even with the 5-year rule, even with the 5-year rule, even with the license, by incentivizing wild harvested over wild simulated or forest farmed, the future doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that really wasn't a specific question, but we appreciate your insight. Yes.
Are there any incentives for harvesters to plant seeds out? Johnny Appleseed.
I gave every digger free seed that sold me any ginseng.
Yeah, the problem here is the numbers. We have so much seed each year. They're taking so many plants each year. The number of seeds doesn't equal the number of plants. Plus, on top of that, a number of our educators are still telling people to broadcast the seeds, so they get very little germination versus just putting each seed into the ground individually. So there's a problem that we have with the old system, the ag extension, spray it and sell it to China, versus now keep it organic and keep it American. And to switch over is not easy. We don't have the kind of support legislatively, we don't have the kind of support educationally from the extension that we really need right now.
So I have a philosophy that when you have to put back, so harvesting you have to plant.
Yeah, well, we need to tell the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that that's what we need to do.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing from y'all. I'm so curious about this fresh ginseng experience. What my understanding was, besides helping someone who's ill, that it's a wonderful way to celebrate something important, to share. Is that true? Like in the community, that it would be a beautiful gift for a group of people to share, partaking of the fresh?
Okay, the question was, is ginseng more with the fresh Korean market as a ceremony or part of a way of life?
Such a short window, like
Yeah.
everything needs to happen in September and October, for it to be used, right?
Right.
So, I mean, would there be celebrations at that time that people would think ahead, well, that's when the ginseng is fresh, we should have is it like that, not just for health purposes, but for
Harvest?
Yeah.
sharing?
Sure. Yeah. I could probably share my experience. So, because wild ginseng is so rare and it's considered as so mythical and legendary and whatnot. So not many people know that, oh, ginseng actually is harvested during, September and October. Nobody knows that, right? So first off, they don't have that education, but because it is so rare and it is so precious that it is actually used to actually give to somebody, or however, those people that are more educated, they'll actually get together and do what you say, make a chicken soup with, ginseng. But those people who has the mean and, resources to do it, then they'll do wild ginseng instead of, farm ginseng, definitely. But, I want to emphasize just one more time because this is so important because Korea had wild ginseng until maybe 200 years ago, 250 years ago, and then it was extinct. And this is real because it happened. And our ancestor experienced it, and I feel like, we're repeating here again, so.
But they do grow it, don't
Yeah,
The
but,
question is, do they grow it in South Korea?
yeah, they do grow it. It's cultivated ginseng. So the medical property between cultivated and wild is so different according to the traditional herbal medicine doctors in Korea. Therefore, the price of cultivated versus wild is maybe at least 100 times or a couple hundred times. So, and I know that they still sometimes get ginseng, like maybe 10 to 15 roots of wild ginseng in Korea. They go around, what, 3 to 5 grand, $5,000 USD. So, yeah.
Yes.
So I've never had a chance to ask somebody who has both a Western and Eastern perspective of this. So the issue of leaf.
Yes.
Westerners who view active constituency from a pharmaceutical perspective look at ginsenosides and say that there are as much or potentially more ginsenosides in leaf as there is in root. But my understanding is that over thousands of years of usage in Asia, the leaf was never used. And so you said that there is some value for leaf. Is this to Westerners, or are there people of Asian ancestry in America who are now interested in leaf? What is that Asian history around the use of leaf from a Chi perspective?
Let me just chime in here. In '98, I believe, Canada did the first leaf study that was in English, because there's a lot that we don't know in Russian and Chinese, but indicating the ginsenoside count in the leaf. This was in Canada. So from the late 90s, the consciousness of the harvester was not even there to bring those leaves out. The consciousness of the harvester was not to suck the pulp off of it and then plant the seed. So they just didn't have the knowledge of either that they felt that it was waste. In both that, and the video I showed was shown at the Organic Grow School by Jim Hamilton, showed what they did with the pulp from the berries. And it is so sad that all of that medicine is thrown away, typically. So we're just starting to understand some of these things, and I think the leaf is probably one of the most important discoveries about its use into products.
Well, I guess but you're shaking your head, so I want to hear what you have to say, because that's a Western notion.
But I actually agree a lot with Robert because my father taught at Chinese traditional medicine school. He taught herbal medicine, and I asked my father a lot of questions about this. It's like, hey, it has to be good. It's from ginseng, the leaves and stalks. He doesn't know because he probably saw wild ginseng maybe once or twice in his whole life in Korea, and probably a lot of books, and therefore, thinking about just the root, just like, it's amazing to him. So he probably didn't even have a chance to think about the leaves and whatnot. But I think this is a great chance because according to some of the studies that I've read on Chicago Medical School, and there's a lot of good property about pulse and ginseng leaves. And looks like RG3, which is good for dementia, and like compound K, which is good for giving you that stamina, is I believe is much higher than is in the root. So this is just a really good opportunity for us to actually educate and market and sell.
If you, as a practice, begin farming by picking and harvesting the leaves, it's going to eventually diminish the size of the root.
Oh, well, I don't.
Great question. Had a grant to answer that. Yeah, it wasn't funded. Right. Okay, so the question is, if you start harvesting the leaves when they're green and they have the medicine in it, what does that do to the root that is down below? So my gut is that the root has had a lot of time to grow from the winter time all the way through the summer. And when it gets past the flower, into the green berries, and then finally into the red berries, that whole upper thing is going down. And so you take those leaves at those opportune time to take that, and that medicine would go down inside the plant logically, and that's what we're being taught. However, does that increase the amount of the root that's down in the bottom? There is no knowledge about that right now. We do need more research on that. Do you have something?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I might not have like exact answer to your question, but before I got into North Carolina, this region, I actually was in Wisconsin in a farming industry for ginseng, cultivated ginseng. So, and I could kind of relate to what they did. And what they do is, I don't know about the health property, but in terms of size, they'll actually pick the berries a little bit earlier. And I asked them why. When they pick berries a little bit earlier, the size of the root will actually expand really fast. Yeah.
Into the fruit.
Yeah.
It's going into the root.
Yeah. So some people will actually tear off the leaves too, and then I don't know about the health property, but it will actually expand the size of the root.
I wonder what happens to the seed development, because that's important too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it reduce germination or inferior seedlings?
Again, a lot of that research is just not done. Well, the question was, well, what happens with the seeds that you take early? Are they having the same germination as it would be if you waited a little bit longer? I think that the whole society has been in abundance, overabundance. We have not used our medicine properly. We have not used our plants properly. And this is coming back to bite us. So I think that just the concept of thinking about the leaf and thinking about the pulp is for this plant then makes the plant more valuable.
I would like to see more studies related to mycorrhizae and ginsenosides. Some of you people from the university.
That's very, very important, and it's just so appropriate right now because the whole vegetable industry is now really starting to get into different types of mycelium that affect the individual plant that you're dealing with the right soil and everything to make that plant at its optimum. And we're just starting to get in here. In fact, another question that I would love to ask is what's the proper nematodes that we need to be putting down into the ground also to make that community that the ginseng really can thrive with.
I fear we would have breakthroughs that would cut back the logging industry. And then we might save some trees.
Yeah. Okay, yes.
I just want to add something. I'm a botanist, so I did a similar study on the ginseng content in the leaves compared with the roots. And it is actually not surprising that the leaves has more ginseng content. It is because the leaves are So it's not surprising. And there's like in my research, in my study, that's about 3 or 4 times more ginseng in the leaves compared with the roots.
Well, if you would let us, we would love to link our information to your site so we could learn that information and spread it.
Yeah, of course. And I fully agree with you that the best time to harvest the leaves that do not damage the plants is when there's the berry, and when the berry ripen. That's the best time to harvest. If you harvest the leaves in the summer, it will inhibit the growth of the roots, because at that time the roots still need the nutrients from the leaves to grow. So the best time would be in the fall. So there are some similar studies in other plants, but not in ginseng.
Well, thank you for that.
It's similar.
I appreciate that very much. Appreciate your input there. We're talking about leaf and growth of the root. Again, to me, when I was putting in my grant on this, I had the question of, well, okay, what happens if we don't take all the leaves in the summer? What happens if we just take a couple of the leaves that are really, really good and leave some of them on and then take some down the line? Exactly how much is that going to hurt that root? And is that offset? Is the medicine offset by the larger part of the root? I think all of these questions are out there. And the more attention we give to the plant, the more opportunities we're going to have for people to start to study it. Yes. Yes, you.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the market. So, has there been any efforts to turn wild ginseng market into a seller's market?
Okay, the question is, have we been able to change the ginseng market into a seller's market?
Was there any effort? Has there been any
Attempt.
An attempt. Well, we can, you want to tackle that?
My colleagues from Tennessee have been doing a lot of work to try and bring the people a better price in relation to ginsenoside content and farmed root that has a good genetic quality to it. But everything's slow. There's so much ignorance among the regulators and lack of funding. We have 2 officers for 4 counties ready to enforce big counties, mountainous counties. And, you know, most of their calls are about some lady that has a bear ate her cat or is tearing up her garbage. And so they're writing up a report while somebody's digging thousands of dollars of ginseng. And then they run over there, hey, these ginseng diggers are fast. You know, they can't catch them. But that's the effort I'm aware of in Tennessee.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, honestly. I think, you know, ultimately, I think that's the way that we should actually have to go. But, you know, because it's such a big project and there's so many, you know, agents that are involved with this in this market, and therefore, realistically, it is difficult to, you know, make it seller's market right away. But I think we have to have some kind of mindset to try to preserve it by approaching from a market perspective, which is, you know, seller's market. And if we actually come up with some like action plan, step by step, in a long term, I think that might be really possible. And because ginseng, and it is possibly because I believe that ginseng is limited, you know, resource, and it is declining, and there's definitely a big demand, and there's many tools and skill sets that we have to apply to make it happen, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
One more question. Do you think the markets that you guys work with, we've worked with a certification program called Forest Grown Verified in the past, and I'm curious, for your end buyers that you work with, if there was a certification where an inspector goes out and it verifies that the roots are being harvested sustainably, do you think that your buyers and consumers would be willing to pay a higher price point to your end about the seller's market?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the question is, do we have an ability to control the market for being able to?
Let's control the question, Robert.
Would consumers be willing to, do you think that your consumers or buyers would be willing to pay more if there was some sort of verification in the certification?
Right.
To increase the price point?
Yes, I hear that. I tend to have a minor problem coming from the North Carolina Natural Products Association, where they tried Blue Ridge naturally. I did not see any pre-study that said that it would benefit the people who were using it. The amount of money is such that it usually puts you now at an economic disadvantage. And so I question it. I believe as we move through the American market, that is way more sensitive to organic, that organic ginseng could be certified. But just to certify that it was grown in the woods is a tough one to get the people whose market that doesn't control anything about it. There might be a small situation where there's a retailer, co-op, something like that, that'll say, no, I won't buy your roots. But the majority of the rest of the market doesn't care.
The people in control of the larger end of the wholesale market are very wealthy. They're very connected politically. And before Robert and I did a small radio show early in ginseng season on fresh ginseng, mostly is what we talked about. I had a very private, heated discussion with one of the largest buyers in the world of how he was going to feel about me talking about licensing harvesters and promoting the green industry. He said, there's going to be less diggers. There are less people digging. And I said, so what? There's less plants every day. What, do you want to dig it all out? This is what we're up against.
Yeah.
Can I answer
one more question? Oh, you want to answer?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, her.
I'll get to you in a second.
Because I have a little bit
Yes.
different perspective than Robert, and which I have a respect for Robert all the time. But I think that certification will help. I think certification means source credibility, right? And people are actually paying top dollars for what they're getting. And I kind of look at this as a perspective from like jewelry business. So if there's some kind of certification, then source credibility goes up, and then confidence of the buyer goes up, and then I think that will actually, increase the amount of the spending that they spend. But however, there's a catch. I think we have to be a little bit careful because you have to understand the philosophy behind why they are actually paying top dollars, because it is wild. If you actually get a forest grown certification, then they believe that it's not wild. Once the human touches it, so they believe that if it's diamond, then it's not real diamond anymore.
I'll get to you in a second. There is another situation that I think that with the branding, that one needs to really look at closely. The branding has a benefit, as he says. If you have a market that feels that that's a benefit for them to pursue. And there's no doubt that there is a niche that those people would want that kind of a market. Whether that is going to satisfy the majority of the market is number one. Number two, when Blue Ridge naturally came into being, I looked at what they were talking about, and it was possible that a Chinese company could have an office in Asheville. They could buy their merchandise from South America and sell it to England or Europe and have Blue Ridge naturally on their brand. So you have to be careful about what that really means to the people who are there and how somebody might manipulate that to do something differently.
But there is actually one thing that we could actually look into is what Wisconsin did, and not many people might agree with me, but Wisconsin actually came up with this Wisconsin seal, and the buyer who wants to, seller who wants to use that seal has to pay for that seal, and I think North Carolina, Virginia, anywhere, if there's a way that we could actually come up with some seal to actually increase the source credibility of this product, I think that might help. That's something that we could benchmark on.
Yeah, I think that the survey, a realistic scientific survey that went out to those people who would be purchasing it and then selling it is what is necessary for somebody on this side of it to say, yes, I'll be willing to throw that much money into it. Well, we had one down there.
I was going to say that educating the public to buy certified plants would be a good way to go. And convince the public not to buy anything but certified plants. That is the way to go to make the industry viable in the future.
Okay, I hear you. The comment was to have certified plants for people to purchase. I will tell you, in my 25 years of selling ginseng plants, I've never put a label on every plant as they want you to do.
I didn't mean that. I mean educating the public.
Yeah.
Not to buy products that are basically poached.
Okay,
this is where we need a class before they get the license or after. They have to go through someone that's very experienced and take them physically and show them how to dig a plant, which plant to dig. You might have a plant this tall that needs to be put back in the ground.
You've got to convince people not to buy things illegally.
Yeah.
Buy things that have been regulated so that we can sustain this industry.
Right. So the statement was to not buy any illegal plants as a way to move the industry forward. And I think we all agree that that's a great idea. We have another question?
I'm inspired by the future with these two, Caleb and John, these two young men who have a connection with the diggers, because it's almost like this plant, if all the people connected are not looked at as an integral part of it, because you might say something negative about these diggers, that they're poor and whatever, but these people know the woods. They have a certain skill set that is different than a lot of people. But if we take care of those people in the whole story of ginseng, we all rise together.
Yeah.
And that's real hopeful to me that y'all are very tuned in to that important person in the picture.
Thank you for that comment. Okay, did we have...
I was just going to say the reason Caleb had a heated conversation with his Hong Kong buyer was because the Hong Kong buyer gets somewhere between $8,000 and $24,000 a pound at retail in pharmacies in China. And your comment about the Wisconsin ginseng, well, 90-something% of the Wisconsin ginseng goes to the TRT, goes to the drug company there. They control that market and they dictate the price because they buy it all out of those 3 counties. If you're going to change the market, you have to look at ginseng not as a standalone plant, but as an integrated part of a financial ecosystem that involves the watershed canopy, the hardwood canopy, land use, Appalachian income. And Caleb, I'm really glad to hear you advocate for regulation of diggers. I thought I'd never live to see that day.
But we have to take care of the hillbillies.
We have to take care of them.
Let me tell the public, I told you the story I told you privately. So I have a guy that sold me about $20,000 in ginseng. He has family property, about 120 acres, and I went to the trouble to check it out because I was concerned. Now, when he crawls out of the mountains, he has a truck that has rust. It looks like it's going to fall apart. It barely runs, and he's got a shotgun with him. when he's selling his ginseng. And it's okay, we get through that. And I paid him the most I've ever paid anybody in my life because he had about 20 roots that would have filled this tabletop up. Wild, beautiful. They must have been there since his grandfather's grandfather put them there or, encouraged them to grow. And so he told me a story, about the whole place is covered and they've been taking care of it for generations. And so he's weed whacking around the family graveyard. And some guy pulls up in a brand new truck, a Toyota. And he drives a beater. And he says, I like your truck. He cut his weed whacker off. This guy's on his property. And he says, you want to know how I paid for that? He said, how's that? Right down that holler on his land. So, there has to be a period where we account for the amount of plants like I have and some of you all have on your properties before we move into regulation that cuts us out of our investments.
Okay. Well, that is an interesting perspective. And if there's no other questions, I think we're going to take a break. And we will come back and hear Jessica and RJ talk about their experiences.